Hello everyone, welcome to News Today. So today is 2nd of April and we are going to be discussing the key events which have taken place. Now I'm sure you are aware of the fact there's so much happening around the world, and in that I think it's more significant for us to understand which of the news items or which of the developments hold merit for the purpose of our exam, the UPSC exam. So we've brought some of those key events for you. I'm going to first share the headlines, the topics which we are discussing today. First is Prime Minister inaugurates Kinase Semicons outsourced semiconductor assembly and test facility in Sananand. Sananand is in Gujarat. Then Artemis second mission launched astronauts into the outer space. After that, we talk about strengthening special economic zones for global competitiveness and growth. Internet shutdowns in 2025 report by Assess Now NGO released for Keep It On coalition. Then ISRO's space-based application for scientific social responsibility. So these are the main news which we are talking about. And after that, there are some quick updates, some key areas which you should be familiar with, which we brought here for you. So you have the rice whale. It's a variety of whale. Then Amravati, ammonium nitrate, general anti-avoidance rules. Then a new vaccine, Qdenga, LPG and LNG, buzzwords these days, very prominently in news, so you should understand their composition. Then Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Bill 2026, registered unrecognized political parties. And the last thing we are talking about today is Glacial Lake outburst floods. So one by one, let me take you to all these developments. So the first thing which we are talking about, this is an Indian company, Kinase Semicon, and Prime Minister has inaugurated their outsourced semiconductor assembly and test facility. So semiconductor is a very vital component on all digital equipment, and this particular unit which has been set up, this is going to assemble and test. So assembly and testing should tell you production is happening somewhere else, right? So we're importing those semiconductors and then we assemble them into different circuits and different devices, and then they are tested and then they can be sold. So it's like one part we are going to do domestically, which is a very significant achievement considering a lot of our semiconductors are coming from abroad. Now, very key thing, last year, the 2025 mains also had a question specifically on the importance of semiconductors in your general studies paper 3. So as a theme, very relevant. It can be asked again also, even in prelims. So let's first understand what is the application of semiconductors. First is, of course, in computing and electronics, and different types of components need semiconductors, like your memory chips, transistors, microchips. So we need smaller and smaller chips as devices are becoming smaller, even wearable for that matter. So we need smaller components to be efficient, and semiconductors are very ideal for that. So then you have the automatic industry, so any kind of electronics which are used there. Then energy generation. So for solar cell, they are a very good component because they will be able to capture and absorb a higher amount of sunlight, which makes for efficient solar cells. Then your LED, the lighting systems, again, highly efficient light generation system. Your LEDs, they're also used in display technologies, your television screens and all of that. Then in telecommunications, cell phones, routers, sensors for heat, light, and motion, various different applications can be created. And as we talk about the future of the world, or let's talk about India here, future of India or any economy will have to be in a digital medium. So you need to be able to control everything that is required for that digital revolution. India does well when it comes to software production, software creation in the world, but this hardware component we are not very good with. So this is a starting point towards that. So you have a number of government schemes in this line, a number of initiatives which are there, which we want that we should be able to produce these semiconductors in our country, or at least assemble them in our country, like this initiative of Sananand is therefore. So this particular project which was set up, this is under the India Semiconductor Mission 2.0. Then you also have a Semicon India program, then a semiconductor and display fab scheme. So fab is basically the fabrication unit, the semiconductor fabrication process, and the thing which comes out, that's called fabs. And these are, or their production is a highly specialized process. It needs a very clean environment, a very, you can think of it like it's a factory, but it's one of the cleanest factories of the world, because you cannot, they're so small in size, you cannot have any dust particles or any kind of particles disturbing the whole creation. And then the last one is design linked incentive schemes. So you want to promote your own production, your own design, and so that means from starting to the end, like in the Semicon India program, you talk about different kinds of incentives. In this fab scheme, there are financial incentives also, which would be given by the government. And you want to promote design specifically, that the design, the very beginning of the process should be India's own doing. And that's why you have all this vision. And one thing which has come out of all these government initiatives as successfully is that particular semiconductor assembly unit. Now, there are a number of challenges in this. One of the biggest challenges is import dependency. See, the material which we need to make semiconductors, one key component is your rare earth elements. And when I say rare earth, it doesn't mean that they're rare in the earth, but it's just that in a very large unit, in a very large ore, they're present in a very small amount. So that's what makes them rare. And as of now, there is minimal production of this happening in India. Almost all of it is coming from outside India, China being the biggest entity which exports these rare earth elements. As a result, China and places like Taiwan, they are big on production of semiconductors and all different kinds of chips. So they are in a way controlling it. So that creates a dependency which you want to break down from your own indigenous production. But as of now, let's say we decide we will make our own semiconductors, we'll have our own design, but still for raw material also we are highly dependent. Then there is a skill gap. Now again, in skill gap, anything which involves technology, you need trained professionals to work on this. India has a lot of design professionals, but the actual operation, the actual fabrication experts, that is still, you can say, minimal in India. So there's a lot of gap in that particular, like we might be thinking about production, but you actually need human resource, in which as of now is not skilled enough to be able to handle that. Then high investment and long gestation. See, any technology-driven project would require high investment. And if somebody is ready to put in that kind of high investment, the person would also be expecting high returns, right? That's how the logic of a business works. The problem here is there is a long gestation period. That means it will take a number of years before you start making your money back. Just the initial input cost is very, very high, and that in itself is a big disincentive. If you want to promote any sector, current scenario is this, that you have to encourage private participation. Like Kinase is a very old company which is now taken this initiative, but you will not have a lot of such options if you want to grow it on a very wide scale. So because of high investment and long gestation. And then intense global competitiveness. So you can say, think about this as India is slightly late to the game, because like I told you about China and Taiwan, even US is doing it. So is a lot of competition. They capture a lot of markets, and the intensity of that competition is very severe for India to get into it. And it is still going to be a lot of they do have that advantage of starting much before, so that's another challenge for India, right? But any such initiative which is there, we of course need to applaud it. That's one step closer to getting towards our ultimate goal of complete indigenous production of semiconductors. Going ahead, we are going to move to the next article, which is on Artemis 2 mission, launched astronauts into the outer space. So this is NASA's mission. This is NASA's mission. They are sending a crewed team. They are sending human beings to moon. It's a 10-day mission. So they're just going to go around moon, go close to moon, and basically fly by it and then come back. And earlier there were attempts of sending men to moon in your different Apollo missions. So, but this has happened almost after 50 years. So this is like a renewed interest in this field of exploration around the moon. Now, just talking about the details of what has happened here, or because there are a number of missions in this Artemis series. So you had Artemis 1. So in 2022, this was uncrewed. So no human life. So it's basically like the first step is testing, that you test that, okay, can you go around this path? And then you finally would send human beings. So 2026, first crewed mission. Now there are future plans also. So automatically you will find this very logical. Okay, now you've sent a crew, but this is without landing. So the next step is to landing. Landing also you will not do as such. So first is testing for commercial landers. Okay, testing can be done or not. And then in the fourth mission, you are going to target lunar landing. And the fifth one is setting up a base. So you want to establish something, because this is like a plan to study the moon in the long term. And by the time we reach here, this is 2028, you'll have a lot more idea about what's happening around the moon and the feasibility of all these steps. Now, the significance of this mission is, of course, like I told you, there is a renewed interest. Even if it's NASA's mission, but everybody is following it, right? We are sitting here and talking about it. So there is a renewed interest globally on the topic. And what would be happening here? So how this would be helpful? So of course, technological and scientific advancement, any leap which man takes anywhere, or any development in science, is overall for human benefit. So that advancement is of course there. It also opens up, or opens a possibility of economic opportunity, space economy, resource utilization. Like there is this idea that there are a lot of resources present on these celestial bodies which can be utilized, some minerals, some special forms, because gravity amount is different, so different kinds of products can be created. Helium is one key aspect which we feel might be usable, and there are many such things. More research will make that clear. Then gateway to deep space. Any missions which you want to have in any other part of the solar system also, like you want to go to Mars, you want to go to Venus. So this kind of an mission also helps you prepare for all these steps. And of course, strategic importance. US is doing it, so of course it's like a crown on its head that okay, this has been done. And of course it will also be an inspiration for other countries to follow, but of course they get the benefit and the pride which comes out of it. Now, when it comes to the UPSC exam, of course, they can ask you what this mission is about. But there are many questions. If we look in the prelims exam, they take one theme, like if they're talking about the moon, and they can ask you which all countries have missions or which countries don't have mission. So when it comes to global missions, the key thing which you remember is the name of the country and its mission. So any mission is there. One thing which you should definitely know about it is its country. So I've listed a few of those missions here. So you have India's mission to moon. Okay, we're talking about moon exploration. So you have the Chandrayaan series. Of course, this is an Indian mission, so you need to know about this in detail. Then China has Chang'e 6. Then Japan has Smart Lander for investigating the moon mission. This China's mission is actually a robotic mission. So that is its significance. So you should know these names, you should be familiar with them. Next, we have strengthening special economic zones for global competitiveness and growth. So this is about, again, I would say a very important topic in GS paper 3, economy part, special economic zones. So what are special economic zones? They are special areas which are created for a particular kind of export capabilities, and the rules are such that that area is not considered to be a part of India. That's considered to be a foreign land, because the purpose of this SEZ is exports. It's supposed to make, process goods and services for other parts of the world. So if it is not a territory of India, you don't you don't have to pay the export duties. So they kind of save on that, and that is an incentive for them to work. Right? Now, what is happening is that you know that the world is in a crisis, sea routes are blocked, right? So in line of that, there is a challenge to this whole operation, that can our exports even move ahead? And because all of that is halted, the taxation system has given a relaxation that they can sell in the domestic area, okay, India's domestic market, and they will be giving some relaxation on taxes. See, because they were a foreign area, the rule was this, that if you export, there is no duty. But if you sell in India, then because you are a foreign land, you have to pay import duty. So now they've relaxed it in the current scenario. And just to focus on the significance of this, okay, first, if we talk about what exactly is an SEZ, they are specially delineated duty-free, this being the key aspect, duty-free enclaves treated as foreign territory for trade operations and custom duties. So the government notifies these regions, and just look at the numbers. We have 368 SEZs notified in India. Of course, they're working in different sectors, different kinds of industrial setup would be there. And to govern this legally, you have an SEZ Act of 2005 and the SEZ Rules of 2006, which delineates how everything will work. Now, its significance, broadly, if we have to commemorate, I'm not taking you to any numbers, but just a sense that overall countries' export is going to grow. You're going to get investment, because a lot of these endeavors are connected with exports. There is a lot of foreign investment also, which it has attracted. So domestic investment is there, but along with that, foreign investment also. Then creation of jobs. Of course, you have a dedicated area which is making a lot of money, it's an export business, you need people, so job creation would be there. Then there is also infrastructure development. So the areas where they've been created, and because they are exporting goods, so that is export channels, everything, or you can say the supporting industries also develop. And one key infrastructure which is developing, which is the most vital thing for export, is your ports. So you have a number of ports dedicatedly which have really benefited or have been created or modernized in line with the SEZ. So you have the Mundra port, Kandla port, Sri City, Gift City. Gift is in Gujarat, so it's an abbreviation, Gujarat International Financial something city. You can check that, right? So this is like an additional benefit, right? In a way, this also will end up being one of the challenges, because you need a large amount of land to set up this infrastructure. So this is what will complete your topic on SEZ, that what are your challenges. Okay, They have a lot of benefit, government is facilitating them, encouraging them, but there are challenges which are there. So what are those challenges? First is, of course, land acquisition. See, land in such a large amount will obviously not be available. You have to acquire it. So that has its challenges. Then there are regulatory disputes, exemptions, compliance, approval process. Sometimes that's very tedious. Sometimes there are multiple layers which you have to agree to, which kind of becomes a disincentive to invest in an endeavor like this. Then maintaining export focus, ensuring domestic sales and incentives should not dilute export goals. So the key is export, right? You should not be, the problem is that sometimes if there are some hurdles on that part that, okay, or some approvals are pending, then maybe it shifts towards, the good domestic market. So you have to be very cautious about managing that. Then infrastructure gaps, power, connectivity, supply, logistics, uneven distribution of SEC. So few states were able to reap a greater benefit of this scheme, few where there are no SCZs also. So that kind of an issue is definitely there, right? Um, okay. We are, I would say, bound to see a lot more such readjustments in the coming days, considering, like the Prime Minister is talking about the fact that what's happening in the world globally, the kind of unrest which is there, it is likely to have some long-term implications. So the key for us is to keep track of the developments which are in India, so that we get a broader picture that how developments in certain parts of the world or uncertainties can change our system at home. Right? Next, we have the Internet Shutdown in 2025 report by Assess Now NGO, released for Keep It On. So this is actually, it's like a hashtag thing. So this is Keep It On, right? So 3 words. So Keep It On Coalition. Now, this is something which is very shocking also, and ideally I would say that not something which should have been happening in India or globally. But what is happening is, whenever the government of any part of the world faces some kind of a threat or wants to have some kind of a control, they shut down the internet. Okay, like let's say there's a Pahalgam attack, so the government will shut down the internet. Okay, for 10 days no internet connectivity anywhere or in that region, right? So such regulatory shutdowns which are there around the world, they're a matter of concern when it comes to internet or access to information as a right. And this particular organization or movement is talking about it. They presented a report of how things have been flagged around the years. So the global snapshot is that in 2025, this is the highest amount of shutdowns. There were 313 internet shutdowns around the world. So this is like 52 countries um, have done 313 shutdowns. Okay. And India has recorded 65 shutdowns this year. Now, this is the lowest since 2017. Okay, so we were even, our data was even worse. But the saddest part, right, which really needs criticism and understanding and a greater in-depth idea into going this, is that India is the second overall. If you compare all the countries, so India is the second in terms of the highest number of shutdowns, and this is the only democracy. Okay, so highest for any democracy. Ideally, democracies are expected to preserve the rights of their citizens or give them those basic fundamentals of life. But India has had conditions where they needed to do this shutdown, and which is a worrying aspect. There are a number of concerns which come out of this. Okay, I'll tell you the legal basis. Let's talk about India first. So the legal basis of bringing out these shutdowns is, so there is a telecommunication temporary suspension of services rules 2024 under the Telecommunication Act of 2023. So there's a dedicated rule for it. So they have provision that who can apply it. So the main authority is the Home Secretary, or for the State Home Secretary. But there are details that, okay, this is the area which they will apply it in, this is the time period for which they are going to apply it. Then under certain special condition, the magistrate can also issue it, the joint secretary or any officer senior to him, they can also measure it. So who and till when and how much time, all of that is like described in detail. And there is a end point here that the suspension duration cannot exceed 15 days. Okay, that's the timeline here. Now, why are we concerned? Why is this a humanitarian problem? Why is this being highlighted by this NGO? Why is there movement? So basically their goal is that internet shutdowns have to stop. Under no condition the internet should be shut down. Okay, because that connectivity should always be there. Why? They say these are some of the points, and I think they are very good points if you have to write an answer anywhere or an essay topic, right? So in that, these points will be very helpful. So human rights abuses, because reporting will be impaired, like there are data in which the International Court of Justice also talks about this issue. Then governance and welfare, like you have government schemes which run on internet, right? The government is going to put money into your account, or you can access your money online, digital India. So disruption of schemes like the direct benefit transfer, that's a problem. Then economic losses. I'm sure most of you are buying almost everything online. So if your internet is not working, there's no milk coming into your house, there's no grocery coming into your house. So it's like an economic shutdown also. And of course, because of that, economic losses will also be taking place. Then impacts fundamental rights. As access to the internet is under the right to education and privacy under Article 21. Now see, mains answers can really use this content rightly, that you mention an article of the Constitution that really bolsters your argument. Plus they've also mentioned a case for you, for Hema Shireen versus the state of Kerala 2019. The second is freedom of trade and commerce when internet falls. So this is under Article 19. So two articles of the Constitution, through very vital articles of the Constitution, are being contradicted here. This is the specific case in which this was stressed on is Anuradha Bhasin versus the Union of India. And then of course there is a democratic deficit. It hinders free press, it hinders the rights to information, and that in itself brings its own burden. Okay, so this is an important idea which I think now that you've heard about it, it is going to stay with you, it's going to be in your mind. We'll move to the next one. So, a positive note, finally. This is ISRO's space-based application for scientific social responsibility. Now, just focus on this term. You need to know this term, scientific social responsibility. And ISRO is working on this. So what is scientific social responsibility? It refers to the moral and ethical obligation of the scientific community in educating the public and society, besides working to generate new knowledge. So, ISRO or any other scientific community for that matter, they're supposed to work for the benefit of, like, maybe doing new research, doing innovations, but along with that, it's also their duty, their obligation to educate the public, motivate the public on this new knowledge. And ISRO runs a number of these projects in which they are kind of trying to appeal to the scientific temperament of the people, or educate them, or give them an opportunity to learn about this new knowledge. And these are a few examples. Can be a lot more examples because different ISRO missions will be applied in different ways. I've just listed a few for you in different areas. So one is that for tribals, they've made space labs and Eklavya model residential schools across 19 states to promote STEM. So STEM as an idea is very important. So STEM itself can be a question, right? That what are the schemes the government has for encouraging STEM? So STEM is science, not just space science, but any science. This is ISRO, so we can like call it space science, technology, engineering, and maths. Then for farmers, they are trying to map and issue potential fishing zones. So farmers can get their get involved in fishing wherever ISRO's data suggests that it's suitable. Because of course, the satellites are collecting a lot of geospatial data, and through remote sensing procedures, they learn a lot about different topographies and resources available there. After that, you have a crop insurance support. So they also assist in monitoring crops, and then of course the damage and how insurance claims can be calculated. So ISRO's tools can be helpful in that. Then you have Yuvika scheme, young scientist program, 2-week residential program for class 9 students in tele-education services, PME Vidya. Okay, so see, you might feel that, okay, there's so many schemes which you're coming across, but all these schemes are usable. They're connected to different areas in some way. And in mains, this is the edge which you want. And in prelims, of course, any one scheme can be picked up and asked, okay, what is this scheme about? So area, you should know that, okay, this is related to education and science. Then you have open data access. So whatever research ISRO does, a lot of that data, like let's say AstroSat, that's your space observatory, or Chandrayaan, the moon mission. So they are available to the global scientific community. Now this is here, you can see the impact is not limited to India, but global scientific community, so that they can research further and improve on that data and maybe relate with their existing research for overall human benefit. So this is our scientific social responsibility of scientists to the society. Now we go to your quick updates. So we're going to be quickly talking about different topics, why they are important, what you need to remember. So first is rice whale. See, US is doing a lot of exploration of gas and shale and oil. And because of that, it is said that this specific variety, rice whale, this is being threatened. Its existence is being threatened. Now, where is this? This is found in the Gulf of Mexico, right? So it's adjacent to USA, and its current status in the IUCN is, it is endangered. Okay, so rice whale. Then Amravati. Amravati is in news because now Andhra Pradesh has cleared a bill where Amravati will be its only capital. So earlier the capital was Hyderabad also. Now Hyderabad will be exclusively Telangana's capital and Amravati for Andhra Pradesh. Now from the art and culture perspective, Amravati is very, very important. You have to go and learn about Amravati in that. So this has been a capital in the Satvana dynasty. We're talking a very ancient Indian dynasty, 3rd century BCE. And its major significance comes from it being a major Buddhist site. There are a lot of sculptures and statues of Buddha. And there is a specific style of specific style of sculpture making, Indian art, Amravati school, which is also there. So this is a city, just to emphasize the fact that for Andhra Pradesh, that this is a city which has a long history and very culturally it has been important since many, many centuries. And now again, it's going to be getting its high clout as the capital of Andhra Pradesh. Then you have ammonium nitrate. It's a very controversial material because it's used in explosives, and there are always concerns of safety whenever such a material is involved. But ammonium nitrate also is used in fertilizers, in cold packs, and because of that, the Bharat Coal Gasification and Chemical Limited and Mahanadi Coalfield Limited has signed an agreement for making ammonium nitrate from coal. So they'll use coal to make this ammonium nitrate, which can be used in different places, fertilizers, coal blacks, and yes, explosives. Okay. Whenever there is such a news, the UPSC question paper will not really ask you about the chances. I would say with UPSC, you should never say never or not. But the chances are, instead of asking you about Bharat coal gasification and Mahanadi coal fields, the chances are they ask you more about ammonium nitrate. What is it made from? It's made from coal. That kind of an aspect they usually like to test you on. So that, do you know the whole theme, or are you just a superficial reader? That's going to get tested. Then you have the general anti-avoidance rules. Okay. So what is anti-avoidance rules? So this has been effective. So the idea, the law came in 2012. It was finally effective from 2017. And the aim was to address aggressive tax avoidance. Like, there are certain exceptions which are given for tax. That, okay, if you qualify under this particular scheme, you can get a tax exemption, or the government will give you subsidy. Sometimes it's like that, okay, if you are not an Indian company, maybe you're a company from Mauritius, then you don't have to pay the tax. This tax is for Indian companies. So like this, there is some creative you can say paperwork which can be done for tax avoiding. And to avoid that, the government brought these rules so that when somebody is deliberately just trying to avoid tax to the sense that it does not meet all the legal decorum, so that they can enforce that no, they can specifically put a tax under this rule that no, you have to pay the tax irrespective of whatever the situation. But there has been a lot of controversy that when does this rule apply? And because, you know, anything which happened before 2017, you know, people can register their transactions in that sense. So there has to be like an idea ki before this, if you have done something, it's fine, but after this, you can't do it. That's the point. And that the government has clarified recently that before 2017, it will not be applied. So that ambiguity kind of has been cleared, and that's the reason this is in news. Now, a new vaccine has been approved by Drug Controller General of India. So this is a vaccine for dengue. You know, we are going to hit dengue season soon. It's a mosquito-linked disease, viral infection transmitted by Aedes mosquito. So every time there is monsoon, there are mosquitoes, and diseases like dengue would be there. So vaccination in that sense can protect us. So this is a new vaccine which has received clearance. Drug Controller General of India, that's the agency which would give clearance to vaccines. Then LPG, LNG, we've heard so much about them. Let's see what there is. So there are three terms. So you have LNG, then you have PNG, and LPG. So LNG is liquefied natural gas. So natural gas, if we look at its chemical composition, it's primarily methane. There are some other things also mixed in it, but mainly the aspect which is present is methane. Now it can be regasified into natural gas and used as piped natural gas supplied to houses through pipelines, and the government is really encouraging this because there is a shortage of the petroleum gas, your LPG, the cylinders. So they really want that natural gas we still have a sufficient amount, and we should be shifting to that for households. And for vehicles, you know, CNG, this is more widely used almost everywhere because it's much cheaper than petrol. So that would be compressed natural gas. See, a gas will need to be really cooled to a very low temperature, and you'll have to put on a lot of pressure for it to become a liquid. So that whole process of like bottling and placing something, that's where things have to be done very carefully, and of course that also adds to the cost of the whole process. Then LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, primarily comprises propane and butane. So the components of your petroleum gas are propane and butane, and they are byproducts of oil refining. So when you take petroleum, you refine it, you get all these different segments, so petrol, diesel, like that. And two components are propane and butane, which are going to be liquefied and put into your cylinders for you to get help in cooking. Then Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Bill 2026. So this has recently been passed by the government for to foster trust-based governance. So what's happening is, in India, still there are a lot of colonial laws which are still there, or punishments for something which was, you can say, crime or problematic at that time. But then, you know, after 80 years, society has really more than 80 years, right? So British laws, some of them are from the 1800s. So they have to be ultimately eliminated. And this is one such step which the government has taken. So they have decriminalized a lot of things. So instead of making it a criminal offense, it becomes a civil offense, and you have around 100 offenses which are minor offenses today. So you pay a fine and you get done with it instead of getting imprisoned. Okay, so this is the modification which they have, and this is just a government's step for trust-based governance. So in your governance section, or your ethics, society, civil society, good governance kind of topics, these terms and an example like this, Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Bill, this can come in very handy for you. Then registered unrecognized political parties. So we have some parties which are registered parties, recognized parties, but there are other parties which come under the categories of they are registered but they are unrecognized parties. This status is decided by the vote share which they get in the election in which they participated. And usually these parties, they are not allowed to keep a hold of their election symbol, right? Like if one company has an election symbol, let's say a coconut, so it will not be able to retain it for the next election unless some conditions are met. Now there are relaxation in those conditions which have been brought up, and because of that this is in news. You should definitely go and look this up कि registered party क्या होती है, recognized क्या होती है, unrecognized क्या होती है. That party you should know. So parties now only need to secure 1% vote share in either of the last two elections. So earlier the provision was that in the last two elections, consistently you have to secure 1% of that vote share, the total vote share. And if you do that, you will be able to retain your election symbol. But with this new modification, out of the last two, if in any one you have 1%, you are still good to go with your election symbol. Then rebate of state and central taxes and levies scheme. So this is now a dedicated scheme to promote textile exports, and the best way to incentivize any kind of industry, like here we're talking about textiles, is to give them a concession on the taxes which they pay. Basically the overall duties and everything which would be applied for exports. So there is a scheme which has come for this particular area. It is a 2019 scheme, and recently it's in news because the government finds merit in this and they have extended this scheme. Last topic of the day, glacial lake outburst floods. So glacial lake means the lake which will, you can think of it like have glaciers, be slightly frozen. And 5 such lakes in the Kashmir Valley are being considered to be very highly susceptible, highly prone to this special kind of outburst floods. What are these? Sudden catastrophic release of melt water from a glacial way due to an unstable natural dam consisting of loose rock and sediments of glacial ice failure. So basically some rocks and ice as such. So ice is basically holding everything in place, and if that breaks down, then that water, because of melting, it's basically melting of glaciers, and the idea of that is global warming, increasing temperatures, uncertainty in temperatures, all of that. So this melt water can cause a lot of destruction. That's why the seriousness of this issue has been picked up, and Kashmir Valley as such has 5 such lakes which they've assessed that can be very, very risky. Okay, so with this we complete our discussion for today. After you have listened to this whole discussion on today's News Today, please go and look through the News Today document. It is available on our website. And once you'll try to read it now, after listening to me, you will be in a very better position to understand a lot of topics, a lot of things which we have discussed. And after doing that, please go and solve the questions. So these questions are there so that you get into that habit of understanding that what is the nature of things which you need to retain for the purpose of the exam. And beyond this, any topic, anything which you want, or for your overall current affairs preparation, you can go log into our website, the digital current affairs, and this will give you the overall picture on any topic which you like. On that note, I say all the best. Thank you.